Aloha ʻāina, and welcome to Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future, brought to you by the Kiwani Foundation. I'm Ehu Kahu Cardwell, and here we are today in Manoa Valley on the island of Oahu. And I'll tell you this right now, we have a fascinating guest on the show, so let's go on over here and meet her. Kim, aloha.
Aloha, Ehu.
Pehe oi.
Mai kaʻino, I'm fine, thanks.
Oh, mai kaʻi.
Kim Birnie, did I say your name right?
Yes.
Great, and tell us where we are, Kim.
We're in Manoa Valley. We're here on the west side of Manoa Valley. This flatlands area was once called Keaolana. A lot of old taro farming was done here back in the day.
Wow. So you've lived here in Hawaii for many years, yes?
Both my parents were born and raised here. My father was born and raised here. He went to kindergarten on Maui, and he lived here for the rest of his life. My mother went to Kamehameha, and therefore I've been here a really long time, right? I've been here for 80 generations.
80 generations.
On paper.
You were involved in Kaho'olawe, but also your mother and father were too. Yeah, your parents were involved in that, huh?
Well, we were involved with Kaho'olawe because we all knew that we had this heritage related to Kaho'olawe. So Kaho'olawe has different eras, and during the ranching era, which started in about the 1860s and led up to 1941, the start of World War II, there were different ranches there. And while for a period of time at the turn of the 20th century, my two times great-grandparents lived there. My great-great-grandfather was the Luna.
The supervisor.
Right, was the supervisor there, and he was Danish. My great-great-grandmother was from Kohala, and she was there with 4 of their children. So she actually had 8 children total, but they were there with 4 of their children, including my great-grandfather, whom I knew. So in our family, we always knew that we had this relationship to Kaho'olawe.
This heritage with the island. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, wow.
So they lived there. And then in the early 80s, my parents found a newsletter from the Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana, and they signed up, and they went the spring break of 1984, and I didn't feel comfortable leaving my daughter at that time for, in those days it was 5 days, but my parents had tons of adventures to share, you know, that include people that that, you know, just how things were done in the old days.
This is all about protecting that island because it was being bombed by the U.S. military.
Well, they wanted, right, well, that was the Ohana's objective for sure. But for my family, for my parents, and then for the first time for me, it was just, what is the island? And I think that's the experience for the original 9. It's like, well, we keep hearing these stories about Kaho'olawe, but what are those stories?
Are they true or not?
Well, no, what's the feeling when you go there? What do you feel? What is the story of this place, right? And I think that's what's important. You just want to go and understand what this place is about. For my family, you know, sometimes we all say, you know, what you do, you have to plan for 7 generations ahead. There's always that assumption that you're first in this planning, like you're the first generation or the first person who's thought of this. But the truth is, you might, you know, what about the people before you? Were they planning to make things happen for you?
They were planning for you.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So in my family, from my great-great-grandparents to my mo'opuna, we have 7-generation relationship to Kaho'olawe.
Kim, you've been involved in a lot of other activities in activism besides Kaho'olawe, yes?
I've been involved, yes, but really a lot of it stems from my work at Kaho'olawe, right? It's kind of like the hub, if you will. There are a lot of lessons that can be learned on Kaho'olawe, and we know that not everybody can get to Kaho'olawe. It's physically, it's rigorous to get there, and it's just not for everybody. But there are a lot of lessons of primarily Aloha ʻāina that can be taken home to our home communities, to our workplaces, to our families, and practiced there.
Give me an example of how that would happen.
I will. I'll give you a really practical example. So on island, we have that concept of make a line, right? We don't, nobody's the hero, right? Everybody gets in line and you pass the stuff in and you pass the stuff out.
Everybody works together.
Everybody works together. So in a completely different context, I got these little 4th and 5th grade girls. We're Girl Scouts, and we've got to go down to wherever that delivery point was to pick up our boxes of Girl Scout cookies, right? Girl Scout cookies, everybody loves those. So you got all these troops lining up. Well, I line all the girls up, I make a line, right? Face each other, and we pass the boxes, Everybody else is carrying, they're walking over there, carrying the boxes over here, back and forth. We make a line, boom, they go so fast, the girls end up on the news, right? But how practical is that? And now, of course, it's not that we made it up, but now all communities, we know the value of making a line. You go to the fish pond and everybody, 2,000 people are in a line passing pohaku to,
passing big rocks, heavy stones down the line to place way over there.
Exactly.
So it's a kako thing. Everybody works together.
So lessons like that, how to live together, and really the lessons of Aloha ʻāina. And I think another lesson that Koho'olawe teaches is, those early days, the early activists, and that precedes my time, but people came from all islands, from Kauai, from Kona, they came from all islands to really stand in defiance of what the military was doing to the island.
The U.S. military,
and other militaries. It's not only about Koho'olawe. There are so many other places around Hawaii, around the world, but we need to focus on Hawaii for those of us who are here that need kokua, that need support. We have an obligation to go to other places, to support the folks out at Makua Valley, to really put an end to the military exercises out here. We have a kuleana, in my opinion, to go to other places and participate in other Aloha ʻāina activity. There are fish ponds, there are lo'i, there are awai cleaning, there are lots of different opportunities to participate. And our mo'olono, or those who guide the makahiki activities on Koho'olawe, they also participate in makahiki ceremonies in other places. And where makahiki might have been revived on Koho'olawe, now makahiki is everywhere.
Kim, what other kind of activities have you been involved in with respect to activism here?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Because I don't think I wake up each morning and say, what will be my acts of resistance this week, right? But there's a lot to be involved in. I've been working in the Hawaiian community. I work in Hawaiian health, but I am involved with other organizations and nonprofits that are, in the Hawaiian community, and there's always some acts of injustice that you have to get involved in, and
that you just can't let slide. Yeah?
You just can't let slide, and ideally it's just about education or greater awareness, just calling attention to something. Sometimes it's something like you've just got to sit down and say, no. And so I think activism really comes along with just being part of the Hawaiian community, being an active part of the Hawaiian community.
Yeah, because when you really stop and think about it, back in the old days, pre-contact days, if how you knew you were an activist was, are you breathing?
Yeah.
If you weren't an activist, you weren't doing your part in the community there to keep everybody alive, to grow the food, to catch the fish, to malama the ʻāina,
everybody has a role.
Yeah, and it was all activism. You had to be active in protecting everything we have here, or you didn't live, you didn't make it. Today we have modern conveniences, and it tempts us to kind of slough off. But we really can't do that, because especially if we live on an island like this, Everybody has to be an activist every day of their lives, yeah?
Right, right. There's that great re-awareness of observation and being aware of what's around you, being aware of the elements of nature and behaviors and what goes on around you. And that really makes us all scientists, because we take that data, that information from our observations, we take that data, we analyze it, we evaluate it, and it helps us to change our behaviors, or how to plan to do whatever we're going to do next, right? So that kind of feeds into, it's not a choice between science and culture. We are all scientists if we pay attention, right? If we're active and we pay attention, we are all practicing scientists. And the way we practice that, or the way we observe, the way we change those behaviors our culture informs that.
Kim, one of the things we haven't covered yet is where you work, what you do, what's your profession?
Yes, yeah. I work in Hawaiian Health. I'm with Papa'ololokahi, which is the Native Hawaiian Health Board. It's been around since 1988. Originally, the Native Hawaiian Health Care Act was passed in 1988 by Congress, and it creates several programs, and it gives charge to several entities here in Hawaii to raise the health status of Native Hawaiians and their families through Papa'ololokahi. So we do that through research, data and information, traditional healing. So the organization that I work for does not provide direct services, but we do have 5 Native Hawaiian healthcare systems spread out throughout the islands that do provide direct and enabling services. And we also have the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program, which funds Hawaiians in a variety of health professions. And at this point in time, we have funded more than 275 scholarships to Hawaiians in 20 different professions, and then there's a service obligation attached to that scholarship. So when they graduate and get licensed or certified, whatever it is that their practice requires, then they go to work in a medically underserved area here in Hawaii. So it's a grow your own program. It's about training Hawaiians to serve Hawaiians.
Kim, let's talk a little bit about the health profile of Native Hawaiians today. It's not that great, is it?
Today, it's not that great. So if you'll allow me to go back in time, back before contact, we were awesome. There are accounts that our skin was good, we were tall, most of our men were over 6 feet tall. Men and women were described as being pleasant looking, and in stature, they held themselves well and healthy in so many ways.
But this way, you're talking back in the 1700s, 1600s, 1500s,
I am.
before the Europeans arrived in Hawaii.
I am.
Yeah.
Because it's important for our people to know today, because the statistics today are dire. They're not good. We have the highest rates of illness, death, injury of all the other people in Hawaii, and for some, such as in breast cancer for women, we have the highest rates in the country. But it's been like that. We've known this for 20, 25 years now, and that's an entire generation. So there are young people that have grown up all this time knowing that they're sicker and going to die earlier than everybody else. So it's really important for us to share the story that our kupuna, our ancestors, were vital. They were healthy. They took good care. They were balanced in mind, body, and soul. And I just think that it's really important to present that narrative before we go into the fact that that the program exists because our people need it.
Yeah. Well, the Kanaka Maoli, the Hawaiians back then, pre-contact, I mean, they really had to be that way because they worked hard. They worked the land.
Yes.
They were either farmers, they were fishermen, they were hunters. I mean, everybody had to be in top shape, and they ate the right diets.
Yeah. Well, it's island living. They were self-sufficient. I mean, up until the 20th century, we weren't so dependent on imports as we are now. More than 90% of our food is imported. That wasn't the case 120 years ago. So a lot of things have changed with progress, And some of those many of those things have led into our health status.
Yeah.
So but there's multiple strategies that we approach. Number one, research is important because we need to get that data so that we can inform those that do the programs, those that allot funds, and so forth. We need to do the research, and we need to get that data and information and know how to evaluate it so that it's useful to us. We need to work with those that provide direct services. That's why we're building a workforce of Kanaka Maoli, right? So of Kanaka Maoli physicians, nurses, social workers, psychologists, nutritionists, just all across the board. We're building a workforce, and then they become leaders. They rise up to positions of administration and leadership, and that's a wonderful thing, really. And we've got to work with our traditional healers too. We have to make sure that they feel protected and that the practices are preserved, and better than preserved, that they're perpetuated, and that there are open channels so that they can be perpetuated and they're not threatened by modern policies of liability and certification and all those kinds of issues. So it's a multi-pronged strategy.
There is a pathway forward on this, yes? There is a way to help restore the health of the Hawaiian people.
I like to think so. Absolutely. Work with the families.
So it all starts in the families, yes?
Yes.
And
yes.
It all starts also with replacing bad habits with good habits.
Yes.
In terms of diet, exercise, mental balance, and those things.
That's right.
So how long is it going to take, do you think, to get there? Because you guys have been working at this for quite some time, yeah?
We have been. We've been working at it for a long time. It's also building an infrastructure. When we first started, there wasn't a Department of Native Hawaiian Health at the medical school, and now there is. The education has been successful, but that has to continue because, number one, we have more generations and more people coming into the fold, but also with more education, more screening, you also have more positive finds. So where it may look in some illnesses like the rates have gone up, it might be a result of better education, of successful education.
Sure. Tell us about some of the wins, some of the successes, Kim.
I'd like to tell you two stories about how, if you know who your audience is and you present the solutions in culturally appropriate ways, you get some good successes. There was a ʻāina women's cancer support group out on the west side, and when there was some federal funding that came in, and they were in the process of developing brochures, and the messaging was all about go get screened so you'll live a long time, and it wasn't working, right? We were like,
Not
this
very
isn't about
motivating.
me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When the messaging was changed, go get screened so you can be there to care for your families, then that messaging was successful. And then you realize that not only are women primarily the caregivers, but just that sense of ohana that everybody has a kuleana to be there to take care of your families, that's successful messaging. And those lessons we learn now in how we develop health education brochures. The second one, I'm going to tell a wonderful story about Dr. Sharman Akina, who was a Hawaiian physician in private practice. He worked at Honolulu Medical Group for a long time. Then he retired, and then he went to work at Waimanalo Health Center, where he sometimes he was a volunteer, right? It was that important for him to be there. And he was doing this outreach program where he was going, he did a lot of great programs. But when it comes to a matter of compliance, sometimes the records will say, oh, Hawaiians are non-compliant. In other words, they don't take their medicine or they don't follow the instructions of the physician. So he was finding that he would give, for example, he would say about this antibiotic, take this medicine 3 times a day until it's all finished. right? But in the Hawaiian language, the most important message comes at the front of the sentence, right? And he was saying take it 3 times a day. So what was happening is his patients were taking it 3 times a day until they felt better, and then they would stop and go about their business, and they weren't getting better, and they were marked, non-compliant. So he thought about this, and probably his mother, who was a school teacher, and he changed the language around. He said, take this medicine until it's all pau, 3 times a day. And he found that the patient compliance was, went way up again. So like in anything, if you've got a message, know your audience and tailor your message to the audience.
What are some of the feedback you get from people about the value of the health care they're getting for their family and themselves?
The value, that kind of feedback that the Native Hawaiian healthcare systems get from their patients or their clients, I think is related to the sense of caring that they feel. They know that most times they're actually being cared for by people that look like them, that speak of the same values, that ask about their parents or their children or their families. And I think it's just the sense of being more approachable and accessible and relatable, and still be able to do all the things that any healthcare clinic can provide, which means, can we hook you up to whatever services, Medicaid, or, these services or benefits that you may be entitled to.
Wow. All right, Kim, now how does it make you feel to work there and see these successes happen?
I strongly believe in the mission. I'm there, the organization has had ups and downs, but it's the mission that keeps me there. For sure, I believe in the mission, and I'm there because I want my families to be healthy and to be well, and to know that there will be good outcomes down the line. There are constantly good outcomes. And everybody I work with believes in the mission, not only within Papu'ololokahi, but among our members and among our colleagues. We're all doing what we do because, in my opinion, because we believe in the sense.
As a Hawaiian yourself, you have a stake in all of this and making sure it's a success, yeah?
I do have a stake in it. I want my children, my mo'opuna, to have healthy mo'opuna, but I also, it's a sense of kuleana. We're not just doing what we're doing because some law was passed in 1988. Actually, there is a whole legacy that our ali'i leave to us.
Your ancestors.
Well, more than that, Kamehameha IV and Queen Emma took the kuleana for health. Queen Kapi'olani took kuleana for health, and other ali'i took kuleana for government, for family strengthening, kupuna, for orphans, for education. And at the end of the 19th century, when they saw what was happening to our people, and they saw that the population was changing, there was more foreign influence, that it wasn't for the good of our people, each one of them took a little piece of it and devoted their resources, land, money, whatever they had, they devoted their resources to strengthening the Kanaka, strengthening their people, right? That was their kuleana. So we're doing what we're doing, but we didn't make it up. We're carrying out the legacy of our ali'i.
You're carrying on their mission, actually,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yes,
Are you hopeful for the future?
I am.
Why?
Because I'm a mother,
Uh-huh.
because I'm a kupuna,
Uh-huh.
because my mo'opuna have greater access and more information to things that I never had, that my parents and grandparents didn't have, and because I see change, and I know that things will continue to change for the better. My mo'opuna are all native speakers. My father is in that middle generation, and we kind of all live together. And when my parents married, he used to say, "Oh, when Carlene's grandparents don't want us to know what they're saying, they speak Hawaiian. Now when my grandchildren don't want me to know what they're saying, they speak Hawaiian." And he's right in that middle generation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you're a mother. You're now
I have mo'opuna.
your children, grandchildren, that makes you an elder.
Yeah.
So you've got all these stakes out there. Well, we said it on TV.
We
The
did.
secret's out now, Kim. But that's actually a good thing because you have your feet in many different areas now, with respect to not only your own family but all Kanaka Maoli, all Hawaiians here in Hawaii, and their lives, their health, the health of their bodies, the health of their families, and also, as you said, the health of those 7 generations that are yet to come. Yes?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Planning ahead, leaving a legacy. What will my grandchildren ask me? You know, when they know that I was here or I was there or I was involved in this, you know, what will I say to them when they say, "What did you do?"
Wow. Leaving a legacy, that's what it's all about. Yes?
I guess so. I guess those are the things you think about as you get up there. You reach to the top of the family tree.
That's great, and that's a great message. That's where we have to leave it. Kim, Birnie, mahalo for being on Voices of Truth and sharing your message with us. Please keep doing what you're doing. Please don't stop because you're making a huge difference.
You too, Ehud. Do the good work. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo to you, and mahalo to our viewers for joining Kim and me here today in Manoa Valley. Remember, you can watch us on the web 24/7 on voicesoftruthtv.com, and you can like Voices of Truth One-on-One with Hawaii's Future on Facebook. I'm Ahu Kahu Cardwell for the Kiwane Foundation, along with Kim here, and until next time, ahui ho!
Aloha.
Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.